morning, and it is blissfully short, but it's usually the shortest stories that give us the most trouble. I think last week we were the only church in all of Christendom that didn't talk about the parable of the Good Samaritan, and the reason why we didn't is just because our children's worship earlier in the summer had covered it pretty thoroughly. But this morning when we hear this story, we need to remember that Jesus has just come from teaching with that story, telling the crowd about the parable of the Good Samaritan to teach the great commandment. Love the Lord your God with all you are and love your neighbor as yourself. It's important to have that as a frame of reference because this is what happens immediately following that. From Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. Now as they went on their way, he entered a village, and a woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. One thing is needful. Mary has chosen the good portion, which shall not be taken away from her." The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So every once in a while, this Bible uses different words than I've used in my sermon. So just keep in mind that where here in our Bible it reads, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things." In the study Bible I was using this week to write the sermon, he says you are worried and distracted by many things. So just so you know, that's your frame of reference for what we're about to talk about. And, you know, of all the people that Jesus scolds or rebukes in the Bible, and there are a good many of them, but out of all of them, I actually feel for Martha. Martha is simply doing what she has always known to do. She is cleaning and cooking and doing all she can to provide a warm welcome for her honored guest, Jesus. Can you imagine going out of your way to take someone in, not just anybody, but a weird itinerant rabbi who has been kicked out of many villages, who is known as a rabble-rouser and a troublemaker, and you have taken him into your home? Can you imagine taking this person in and working so hard to make things nice for him, to prepare the food, to make sure he's comfortable, to go about the house and make sure everything is perfect? Can you imagine then this person saying to you, "What are you doing all that for? None of that matters"? I would be furious. I bet you would too. That would feel terrible. That would feel absolutely awful. You would feel like your work is unappreciated. You would feel like all of your effort was wasted. And if you're anything like me, you would just be counting down the seconds until this ungrateful person gets out of my house. The thing is, Jesus isn't telling Martha that her work is unimportant. That's not what he's saying. He is simply pointing out to her that she is spending all of her time worrying and being distracted by things that are inconsequential. If Martha was cleaning and cooking and busying herself because that's what she absolutely loved doing, Jesus wouldn't have a thing to say about it. The only reason he says anything to her at all is because she comes to him complaining that her sister isn't helping out. Who does Mary think she is? Martha can't wash her hands of all this work that has to be done. As the housewife, as the host, she is expected to be doing certain things. And Mary is just going to not help her and sit around and talk to Jesus, and Jesus is going to let her get away with that? Come on, Jesus. Make Mary do what she's supposed to be doing. But rather than insist that her sister do things that she doesn't want to do, Jesus instead tells Martha, "You are worried and distracted by a great many things. And there is only one thing that matters." In other words, if you don't like what you're doing, don't force your sister to come and join you. Just give it up. Just stop doing it. It's fine. There's only one thing that matters. There's only one thing that should be of any concern. And it isn't doing things simply because they are expected of you. The Lord's Prayer operates in a couple different ways. One of the big patterns that we've been talking about is it starts with the oneness of the universe. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And it goes from this universal big picture all the way down to your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's in this shape that we see another pattern unfolding. The whole first half of the prayer is all about God and the cosmos and our theology. The second half of the prayer is all about life on earth. It's all about people here on this planet. And the line that links the two, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, is a reminder to us that we have a covenant relationship with our God. Our God calls upon us to do one thing and one thing alone, and that is to make God's will on earth as if earth were already heaven. That's the commandment. That's the covenant. Jesus spends his entire earthly ministry being very clear about this over and over and over again. Love the Lord your God with all you are. Love your neighbor as yourself. The Lord's Prayer is a reminder to put that covenant relationship, that way of living, in the center of our daily lives. Just before arriving at Martha's house, Jesus summed all that up with the teaching of the Good Samaritan. And now he says to Martha, there is only one thing that matters. Let go of your worry. Let go of your distraction. There is only one thing that matters. But because Martha is so busy fulfilling her role as host and housewife, which she does not because she wants to, but because that's what's expected of her, she can't see what Jesus is talking about. You know what the hardest thing about responding to God's will on earth is? It's not that we don't know what God wills us to do. That's a lesson we learn every single week. Love the Lord your God with all you are. Love your neighbor as yourself. We know what God's will for us is. The hardest part for us is that we are worried and distracted by a great many things, even though we know only one thing matters. We have to pay the bills. We have to shop for food and then find places to put the food. We have to dust the furniture and keep the house clean. We need to walk the dog and take out the trash, which means we need to go shopping to get things for the dog, and we need to take the time to sort out the trash. We live in Kittery Point, so we have to divide up all the different kinds of recycling and the different kinds of trash, what's going to go to the freebie barn and what is just going to go in the landfill. We have to take the time to do all that. We need to get the kids up and ready and out of the house, and we know that there's certain things in our lives that can only happen while they're gone from us, so that time gets filled up with those chores and those errands. As our parents age, we become their caregivers, while also being there for our adult children when they need us, and being a little bit perturbed that they don't call us more often when they don't need us. We need to check in with our friends and our parents and the kids, and we need to stay visible in the community and show up to the important functions. We need some exercise. We need to eat right. We need to get a good night's sleep. And on any given day, if we're really lucky, we might do 2 of those 3 things. There are always projects around the house, constant upkeep and and new jobs in the kitchen. There are things that take up all of our time and our energy, and that requires more money, and all this money has to come from someplace, so we better find a job and keep it and work hard at keeping it. That takes up a lot of time. And we need to prepare for the future when we can no longer provide for ourselves. That requires time of investment and tight budgeting and being very careful about how we spend our pennies. And then we live in a beautiful place, so we need to make sure we're going out and appreciating where we live. And then there's the emergencies. There's the things that just pop up that nobody saw coming. There's the illnesses and the accidents and the last minute things and the things that we never could have foreseen, plus birthdays and holidays, which are the same days every single year, and yet they always creep up a little too quickly. And we don't have the time to get everything in the mail when we ought to, unless we're staying on top of things very, very carefully. And then, after we're done with all those last minute emergency things, we need at least a week to catch up on all the things we didn't do the previous week when all the emergencies came up and all the last minute things happened. These are our worries. I haven't even gotten to the part about our distractions. And these are all our stuff. Nowhere in this list is there any mention of the stuff of our neighbor. I didn't even get around to the big issues like terrorism and climate change and racism, the things that we want so badly to dismantle and disenfranchise in our world. The communal needs. I don't know how you find time with all that other stuff going on. It's the hardest lesson for us to hear because it is the one that is most about us. Jesus isn't physically present on earth anymore. So we don't have to worry about Jesus possibly coming by our house and asking us to leave our lives behind and follow him down the road. That's just not going to happen. And yet, from the distance of 2,000 years, Jesus still manages to creep into our house, to watch us in our daily lives, and to point out to us, you know, you are worried and distracted by many things. But only one thing matters. Friends, Jesus shows us time and time again the one thing that matters: freeing ourselves from the bonds of this world so that God's will can be done on earth as it is in heaven. But the first step to loving your neighbor as yourself is loving yourself. If you yourself are not free to love, if you yourself are so consumed with living up to the expectations of others that you can't provide love and kindness and generosity for yourself first, then we don't know where to begin loving and serving others. When we define ourselves by our expectations or by the work that we do or the things we are successful at, we are shortchanging the one identity we have that actually matters, and that is to be God's beloved child. You are a beloved child of God. That is the one thing that matters. Reverend Otis Moss III, the Reverend at Trinity UCC in Chicago, he has said, only free people can free people. If we want to do love and justice in the world, it has to begin by freeing ourselves. Freeing ourselves from the bonds of expectation, the bonds of anxiety and worry and distraction, so that we know we are loved. And then we share that love with others. So go from this place this morning, knowing the peace of Christ that surpasses all understanding, knowing that you are blessed and you are a blessing to this world. Go from this place not to meet the demands of the day, but simply to be who you have been called to be, God's beloved child in God's world. Be free. Amen.